Rich girl destroys racist dinner guests who refuse to eat Maid's food. Your love and support absolutely lights up my world. Hit subscribe to join our beautiful storytelling family. It means everything to me. Here's my promise. I read and reply to every comment because connecting with you is my favorite part. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from right now. I can't wait to virtually meet you. Now, let's dive into today's incredible story together. The crystal chandelier cast dancing rainbows across the mahogany table, its faceted light catching the rim of every wineglass, every polished fork. Laughter bubbled through the Harrow mansion's grand dining hall like champagne, the sound of money at ease with itself. Then Amelia appeared in the doorway, silver tray balanced in her steady hands, and the evening's carefully orchestrated harmony began to fracture. She had grown accustomed to invisibility. In the 3 years since she'd taken the position at the Harrow estate, Amelia had perfected the art of moving through marble corridors like a whisper, polishing, serving, cleaning, always careful to occupy no more space than absolutely necessary. The work wasn't glamorous, but it was steady, and every dollar she earned found its way into an envelope addressed to her younger brother back home. "The glasses, please," Mrs. Harrow would say, her gaze sliding past Amelia as if she were part of the furniture. "Yes, ma'am," Amelia would respond, her voice soft as cotton. But despite her cultivated quietness, dignity ran through her spine like steel. In the kitchen, away from judgmental eyes, her hands worked magic. She could transform the humblest ingredients into something transcendent, her grandmother's recipes flowering under her touch. The other staff members knew her gift, though the parade of wealthy guests rarely noticed. To them, she was simply background music to their symphony of privilege. Tonight felt different, though. The tension had been building since morning, when Mrs. Harrow announced that this dinner would host the city's most influential power brokers, millionaires, politicians, people who moved the world with a phone call. Amelia had spent hours in the kitchen, her heart swelling with quiet pride as the aroma of her carefully crafted dishes filled the air. She had seasoned each plate with patience and love, drawing on recipes that had been passed down through generations of women who, like her, knew what it meant to pour themselves into their work. Now, approaching the long mahogany table where the city's elite gathered like vultures in evening wear, she felt the weight of dozens of eyes settling on her dark skin like dust. The first guest, a stout man whose diamond tie pin caught the chandelier's light, leaned back in his chair, his face contorting as if he'd tasted something bitter. "Hold on," he said, his voice not quite loud enough to be a shout, but shadows where she belonged. The whispers multiplied, each one sharper than the last, cutting into her like paper cuts that drew no blood but left lasting scars. At the head of the table, Mr. Harrow cleared his throat, his diplomatic smile wavering. "Please, let's not make this into a—" But Charles interrupted, his tone carrying the casual cruelty of a man accustomed to having his prejudices validated. "With all due respect, William, some of us simply aren't comfortable eating food prepared by certain hands." The silence that followed was deafening. Amelia lowered her eyes, her knuckles burning white as she gripped the tray. Each second stretched into eternity, humiliation washing over her in waves, while dozens of strangers bore witness to her degradation. Then, from the far end of the table, came the soft clink of a fork being set down deliberately on porcelain. Amelia glanced up to see Clara, the Harrow's daughter, her young face set with something fierce and uncompromising. The girl's eyes blazed with an intensity that made the chandelier's light seem pale in comparison. "Excuse me," Clara said, her voice cutting through the murmurs like a blade through silk. "Did I hear you correctly? You're refusing to eat because of who cooked the food?" Charles smirked, his dismissal casual and practiced. "Young lady, it's not personal. We just have preferences." Clara leaned forward, her gaze unblinking, unflinching. "Funny, because I have preferences too, and one of them is not sitting quietly while someone insults a person who worked harder than anyone in this room tonight." A collective gasp rippled through the assembled guests. Mr. Harrow's jaw tightened visibly. "Clara, this isn't—" But she didn't sit down. Instead, she rose from her chair like a queen ascending to her throne, her voice ringing with the clarity of a bell tower at midnight. "No, Father. If her food isn't good enough for them, then neither am I. She pushed her plate aside, the porcelain scraping against the table with a sound that seemed to echo through the entire mansion. The guests shifted uneasily, their comfortable authority suddenly challenged by a girl half their age. Amelia's heart hammered against her ribs, part terror, part disbelief flooding through her veins. She had never heard anyone defend her like this, not in a room like this, not against people like these. Charles chuckled, shaking his head with the patronizing amusement of a man who had never been truly challenged. "You'll regret embarrassing your family like this." But Clara only straightened, her shoulders square, her voice steady as bedrock. "The only embarrassment here is yours." The air thickened with tension, stretching taut like a rope about to snap. Amelia gripped the tray until her hands ached, torn between overwhelming gratitude and creeping dread. She knew that powerful men didn't accept humiliation gracefully, and she could feel it building, something that would change everything. The explosion came swiftly. A guest slammed his palm against the table, sending silverware jumping. "This is outrageous. Are we really being lectured by a child?" His face flushed crimson as he pointed at Amelia with a trembling finger. "All because of her." Every eye in the room stabbed into Amelia, carrying the weight of centuries of judgment. She wanted to shrink, to vanish, but her feet felt rooted to the marble floor. Another guest sneered, his voice dripping venom. "You think we came here to be served by the likes of her? In my house, she wouldn't even be allowed near the kitchen." Shame and rage twisted together in Amelia's chest like warring serpents. Her tray slipped, glasses clattering, as tears pricked her eyes. She bent to gather the scattered pieces, but Clara's hand shot out, stopping her with gentle firmness. "Don't," Clara whispered, her voice carrying absolute conviction. "You've done nothing wrong." Charles rose to his full height, towering over both women like a storm cloud. "William, control your daughter. If she won't sit down, then perhaps we should leave. None of us will eat this food." The entire hall froze, forks suspended in midair, breaths held, heartbeats seemingly paused. Mr. Harrow's face darkened as his gaze moved from the furious guests to his trembling maid to his defiant daughter. His lips parted, but no words emerged. Then Clara's voice rang out, louder than the chandelier's glow, sharper than any blade ever forged. "If you walk out tonight because of her, then walk out knowing you revealed exactly who you are." The words hit like lightning. Gasps rippled across the table. One woman dropped her napkin, her eyes darting nervously between the players in this unexpected drama. The men bristled, their pride wounded, their power suddenly questioned by someone they had dismissed as irrelevant. Amelia stood frozen, her heart hammering so violently she was certain the entire room could hear it. For the first time in her life, someone wasn't ashamed to stand beside her. They were willing to stand for her. But she could see it in the guests' eyes. This wasn't over. Power never surrendered quietly. The silence that followed was heavier than stone. One by one, the guests pushed back their chairs, not in solidarity, but in wounded pride. They left their plates untouched, whispers trailing behind them like smoke from a dying fire. For them, the evening was ruined. For Amelia, it was unforgettable. She stood motionless in the center of the grand hall, her tray still trembling in her hands. But this time, she wasn't alone. Clara placed a steady hand on her shoulder, her voice carrying the strength of mountains. "Let them leave. We'll stay." Amelia swallowed hard, tears glistening on her cheeks like diamonds. In that moment, years of carefully cultivated invisibility cracked and fell away. She wasn't just the help anymore. She was a woman whose worth had been defended, whose dignity had been seen and valued. Though the sting of humiliation still lingered, something else bloomed alongside it: hope. The Harrow mansion grew quiet, but the echo of that night would never fade. What had unfolded at that mahogany table wasn't merely about one meal, one maid, or one group of privileged guests. It was a mirror reflecting the prejudice and arrogance that too many still justified with practiced smiles and polite society. Amelia carried that night with her always, not as a wound, but as a reminder that sometimes it takes just one voice, brave enough and bold enough, to shatter the silence that allows cruelty to flourish. Clara's defiance had proven something both simple and profound: that courage, even when it comes from the most unexpected source, has the power to illuminate truth in the darkest corners of the human heart.